not interested in going to the Olympics, man. I just want to live my life. He just kind of chuckled and say, son, listen, if you let these Olympics pass you by and you don't keep the promise to your father that you made, you're never going to be able to live with yourself. I felt like God gave me enough, but he didn't give me an overabundance where I could get lazy. Like my work ethic is what separated me from the rest of the pack. And yes, I can have the faith in God, and yes, I can have all that stuff, but faith without works is dead. I've never felt like boxing came easy to me. Like I look at the Floyd Mayweathers, the Manny Pacquiaos, I look at the Alis, and to me, it looks like it comes easy to those guys. Like it's just natural.
This is a man and a man.
Mano y mano.
You are getting wrapped. You're about to go out.
That moment can break a lot of men.
Hey everybody, Ed Mylett. I'm so excited to be back with you today with another program on the Max Out Show. We bring you people all the time that have maxed out areas of their life that are the best in the world. And the gentleman to my left, the reason I've been after him to do this show for so long is because I think he's maxing out multiple areas of his life. The obvious area is that this is one of the greatest boxers of the last 2 decades, and you might even argue in the history of the sport. And so the gentleman to my left here is retired this last year to be a year ago this week, 32-0. 32-0. Has not lost a fight since he was 14 years old and was an Olympic gold medalist, went on to win the Super 6 tournament in the super middleweight division and was a light heavyweight champion of the world. And so this is one of the greatest athletes, but I think one of the great men in the United States. So Andre Ward, thank you for being here today.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me.
This is going to be awesome. So I wish, as some interviews, I wish we were recording the pre-interview because it's been so good. So thank you so much.
Man, I'm happy to be here.
Let's talk a little bit. We're going to go all over the place, as you know, today. So I want to talk about you, though. I want to get to know the person because, and by the way, you ladies that just heard me say, hey, I've got one of the great boxers of all time here, just realize one thing. This conversation is going to be about faith and life and peak performance and the champion's mindset. And so this fits everybody, every background, both genders, you name it, are going to be riveted today is my hope. So talk about a little bit how you grew up. We were talking about earlier off camera about your mom and your dad, but really your dad was like this central piece of your life. So how'd you grow up? Where'd you grow up and what was your upbringing like?
Yeah, so I'm from the San Francisco Bay Area. Grew up a little bit, maybe 15, 20 minutes outside of San Francisco. In a city called Hayward, and then a bigger city, Oakland, California. And my dad basically raised me as a single parent. Unfortunately, my mother, she struggled with substance abuse. She was kind of in and out, and my dad played the mother role and the father role. And my brother, that was his plight as well. He and I had the same father, different mothers, but his mother was also gone. So we related to each other, and we had the same struggle and the same heartache and different things like that. From a mother's standpoint, and my dad stepped up to the plate, man. He was, he owned his own glass company. He was a glazer, and just a blue collar type of man. And he was the one that he's responsible for introducing me to my faith in God. He's responsible for introducing me to the sport of boxing.
Really? And
really just teaching me how to be a man.
Do you think, I just thinking as you said it, do you think one of the reasons you're such a strong family person is because maybe there was an absence of a mother in your home, and so like that just was something that was so important to you, or are they not related at all?
I think it's just the example my dad, gave me and my brother. Like, we didn't have everything. We grew up, middle class maybe. I think that's safe to say, lower middle class. And, again, similar to yourself.
Yeah.
And again, we didn't have everything, but one thing that we did have was a lot of love. Like, my dad loved us. We had a very imperfect situation. My father also struggled with drug addiction. His drug of choice was heroin. But he was a functional addict where my mother wasn't.
Whoa. I didn't know that.
So he'd go to work 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, then he'd come home and that monkey was on his back. But yet he still, love was a pillar in our home. And family was a pillar, and I think that was the example he set, and that's the example that I've taken, now that I'm a man.
Wow, I didn't know that. That my dad, I'd consider my dad was a functional addict, alcoholic too, but functional. It's really interesting. I'm just curious, did your dad all his life struggle with that, or is there a point where that ended up getting cleaned up?
I think my father started using heroin probably 18, 19 years old or something like that, and it was I don't want to say her name, but it was a young lady he was dating at the time, and my dad grew up in the 60s and 70s, and they didn't know really what they were doing to their body.
I know, yeah.
They're ingesting a whole lot, they're experimenting, and doing all kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And at that point, when he broke up with that girl, and he found out that she was cheating on him, he spiraled. And I think that's when he kind of picked up the needle. And really, man, it was something that he fought off and on for 20 plus years.
Wow, that's amazing. When we were talking earlier off camera, I watched your whole state change when you brought up your dad, though.
Yeah.
There's this massive amount of respect and love that you have. I want to point that out to everybody, too. It's like, as parents, you can have flaws as a parent, whether it be something like that or some other addiction you've got or something. It doesn't mean that you can't be a wonderful parent with some of our flaws. There's no perfect parents. Right?
Yeah.
My dad's my best friend to this day, right? But man, for a long time, there was some real anxiety in my house. So you're growing up. Dad's a centerpiece of your life. You got your brother there, although it sounds to me like there's some anxiety going on still at that same time for you. Why boxing? Like, did you play other sports? I mean, this is a dude. I mean, remember what I said to me? Hasn't lost since he was 14 years old,
That's
right?
Been a little while.
That's crazy to me. So why'd you pick boxing? Did boxing pick you?
I think it's a good question.
Thank you.
My first love was baseball, though.
Me too.
I was a pitcher and a shortstop.
Okay.
And I was all in, and I've always been like that. Like, no matter what I put my hands to do, even as a young kid, like I gave it 1,000%. Maxing out. And then I started hearing my dad tell me these stories, these war stories about the fact that he boxed, and I was like, wait, you fought? He was like, yeah, I was 15 and 0 as a heavyweight, and he boxed at Crestmore High School in San Bruno, California. He was like, man, we had a boxing team, and he's just telling me all this stuff and these rivals. He had a rival, a Samoan kid named Bringhurst. And how they, were at rival schools, and then they ended up fighting, and it was just like, I'm like, man, like I don't want to play baseball anymore. Like I want to box. And my dad, he's like a no nonsense kind of guy. He'll literally give you the shirt off his back. I've seen him do it. But yeah, he doesn't play any games. He's like, listen, if you say you want to do this, we're gonna do it. And we're gonna stick to it. I said, Dad, I want to do it. Next day, he took me down to the gym. The gym was closed, and he kind of lifted me up. There's like this big glass like window. And I looked inside and I saw the boxing ring, and I was like, whoa. Like, I fell in love that day. Came back the next day, the gym was open, and he signed me up. I was 9 years old, and didn't start off too well.
Wow.
Guys were having their way, kind of getting beat up, but I was still tough. I didn't quit. And my dad was like, he doesn't have it. A few weeks later.
Your dad said, he doesn't have it.
Yeah, if my father had his way, I probably wouldn't be sitting here with the accomplishments that I have in the sport of boxing.
Okay. Huge lesson for people to listen to right there.
No, facts.
Huge lesson. Okay.
So, kept going a couple more weeks, kept progressing, and then I ended up meeting this trainer who ended up becoming my godfather and my lifelong trainer, Virgil Hunter. And Virgil was just kind of off to the side, and he was kind of in between kids. You train kids when you, as a coach, and they just get disinterested and they no longer want to do it. And he was at that point. He was just kind of sitting there, and he, I saw my father kind of talking to him, and I was hitting the bag, and then I look over and hit the bag again and look over, and basically my dad told Verge that day, he said, man, I'm looking for a coach for my son, but I want my son to learn how to hit and not get hit. And Verge kind of laughed. He said, that's my specialty.
That looks like his face, by the way. You said it too.
That's my specialty. And we've been together ever since.
That's incredible. Who thinks, there's so much there, like, who thinks your dad lifts you up to look through that window that day, and that the little boy looking back in that window ends up being you, the gold medalist, undefeated boxer. I mean,
it's crazy.
So few people in the history of the sport have done what you've done.
It's crazy.
And this little boy gets held up. And I also love the part that you weren't just naturally dominant in the beginning, right? Because a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of young athletes watch this too. And I think they think, hey man, if it didn't come completely easily to me, maybe it's not meant to be.
Yeah.
And obviously that's not the case. You can speak to that.
That's the crazy part about, as much as I've been able to accomplish, I've never felt like boxing came easy to me.
Really?
Like, I look at the Floyd Mayweathers, I look at the Manny Pacquiaos, I look at the Alis, and to me, on the outside looking in, even though I know the sport is grueling and it's tough and it's hard, it looks like it comes easy to those guys. Like, it's just natural. I always felt like I had to work, like, more than the next guy.
Oh my gosh.
Don't get me wrong, I know I have talent, I know I have skill, but I never felt like it came easy.
Wow.
And that, up until my last fight, over a year ago. And that helped me though. I felt like God gave me enough, but he didn't give me an overabundance where I could get lazy. Like my work ethic is what separated me from the rest of the pack.
I'm fired up right there. Okay, so how brother, you just blow my mind. Like, you have a guy sitting here who's like, there's really to me, in the last 15, 20 years, there's a couple other guys, but there's like Floyd and you, right? The two undefeated guys. And obviously your personalities are completely different, right? And one of the reasons I also want to feature you to a non-boxing audience too, is I want them to understand what a world-class mindset's like, and also where a good man of God, a humble man, a family man can still win in these other areas of his life, which you've done. So it's amazing to me to think that something you were so dominant at. I mean, there's people that are great at something, then there's, outstanding, but then there's like the 1/1,000,000th of 1%, which is what you've been in this sport. And to hear that it doesn't come naturally to you just blows my mind. Talk just for a second. I'm just curious because I didn't know I'd go there. Virgil, did he play a role in your life in any other way other than boxing, in terms of your confidence or any of that other stuff? Like even your demeanor to some extent. Yeah. And watching him in interviews, he's got sort of a, I'm sure he burns rages on the inside, but he's got kind of a cool, calm exterior about him that I see in you too. Go ahead and speak to that.
Nah, I mean, I have a lot of my father in me, and I also have a lot of Verge in me. It's hard not to have their imprint on me. When I've been around them and spent so much time. We spent so much time together, and that again, that's probably something throughout the course of my life as a fighter and just as a man that has separated me. Is like they came. Virgil and my dad came from the old school. Like, they didn't come in the social media era where, a lot of athletes today, they'll show you the hard work and you really don't know how much work they're really putting in behind the scenes. Like, we really got it the hard way. Yeah. And one thing that they always, like, we didn't just go to the gym and work the body. They always were working my mind. Whether I was on my way to a run that morning and didn't really want to be there and was dragging, getting ready as an 11, 12-year-old kid, or going to a big tournament where I wasn't touted to really do anything. Like the mental reps, him being in my ear year after year, day after day, telling me, listen, son, you're meant to be here. I'll give you an example. Athens, Greece, in 2004, had not fought the upper echelon of international competition. I had fought Puerto Rico, Mexico, but never the Cubans, never the Russians. Those were the countries that dominated boxing.
They were really professional boxers in the amateur ranks.
Right. They do it full time. And most of the time, unless they come over to America, they don't turn pro. A smaller guy, I fought at 178 pounds, should have been at the lower weight class of 165 pounds, but I had a cousin that during the Olympic trials was trying to make it, and I said, okay, I don't want us to fight. I think I'm gonna grow anyway, so let me go up.
Are you kidding me? You took a different weight class?
I didn't grow like I thought I was.
Okay.
So I'm weighing in every morning at 170, 171, maybe 72 on a good day. I'm drinking waters and Gatorades and Powerades just to be respectable when I get on the scales. And the weight master, they would look at me and say, oh, you're little, you're small, you should be lower. And I just kind of point to the sky. I had a burner phone that they gave us, and Verge had a burner phone. And he would just call me and he'd stay in my ear. Look, son, you're here for a reason. God didn't bring you this far for nothing. And those types of words would just cause me to be emboldened. When we first got the draw and I found out what bracket I was in, I got the toughest bracket. Yevgeny Makirenko, the two-time world champion from Russia, was gonna be my second fight if I won my first fight. And everybody's kind of like, everybody on the U.S. team was like, oh my God, act like it was a death. Like, man, Dre got a tough draw and this and that. And Verge said, that's the way it's supposed to be. That mentality that he had, those types of words, that type of faith and belief has been something that has been ingrained in me, instilled in me, drilled in me since I've been a kid.
Wow, that's gold. The couple of gold things. One is just having somebody in your life that you can find and seek out that's feeding you all of these these beliefs, this confidence you have, finding that mentor in your life. And then also the part that you shared earlier, I just want to make sure we reiterate too about if your dad had it his way in the very beginning, you probably wouldn't have even been boxing. And that's true for me in my career. I think if my family had it their way in the very beginning, I'd have been working at, some employee job and paying my bills. And so many of you out there listen to these voices you have in your family. These people who love you, but they don't necessarily have the vision or the wisdom to know exactly where you're supposed to go in your life. Thank God that you got Virgil and your own beliefs in yourself too. But so I'm just curious because I've never won one, and almost everybody out here has never won one, and I did not know that you were undersized. I think that makes it even more incredible, and that you'd not fought on that level really prior to with some of these guys. What is it like to win a gold medal? I mean, take us through that just for a second. I want to know what that's like. Like, you win a gold medal and they raise the country, and you I mean, my God, what does that feel like? It's
unreal. Like that, it's a surreal time. It's a surreal moment. And when I look at, the presentation of my gold medal, and I actually in the 2004 games, ironically enough, I was the last U.S. gold medal, out of all the sports, to win. So I didn't make it to the closing ceremonies, made it to the opening ceremonies.
Okay.
But when I look back at the video, I wasn't smiling, I didn't seem happy, but I wouldn't say I was in shock, but I was just I was taken back.
You were.
And I was just trying to process, because you literally fight, they shuffle you in the back, put your warm up on, and then you come back out for the ceremony. And it was I was thinking about my father, who wasn't there.
Your father had passed,
my father had passed 2 years previously. Yeah. And I was like, man, we literally just did 10 years worth of work. It culminated into what we thought it was going to be, which was a gold medal. And I represented my country. And at that time, we had just went to war.
Oh, that's right.
In 2004, so we weren't liked. We started off in the Olympic Games getting booed every time we walked out. And by the end, we had gained the respect and the love of the people, and they were cheering us on. So just a tremendous moment. And one thing that I never lost sight of was that no matter what I do in my professional career, I could turn out to be a bust. But I'm in the record books with Muhammad Ali, George Foreman, Sugar Ray Leonard, and guys like that.
Where's the gold medal? Where do you have it?
It's not in the most prestigious place.
Is it?
I move it around. Sometimes it's in the safe.
Yeah.
Every now and again I'll find a nice shadow box that I like and I'll put it up. But I got this thing I can't, nothing can happen to this gold medal. If I have it in a shadow box on my wall, and God forbid somebody ever breaks in,
that's what I'd be thinking.
It's gone.
That's what I'd be thinking.
So I have it stashed and tucked away. It's not on display, and people get on me all the time about it. But I'm like, look, I've only got one of these.
Yeah, of course.
Literally one.
I think one other thing about you that everyone needs to know, are you hearing this journey? I mean, it's unbelievable. Your father, single dad, dad's got some issues, wonderful father, instills all this. You meet Virgil, you're not naturally gifted. But here's the other piece that y'all don't know. I want you to remember this. Your mess does not disqualify you from going forward and winning in your life, right? Your current mess, what you're going through right now, whatever the turmoil is or the stress, or even self-induced stuff you've done, does not disqualify you from winning, because just 2 years prior to winning the gold medal, your dad passes away, right? And you go through kind of a time there where you were a little bit of a mess, right? Prior to 2 years later, you're raising your hand up as a gold medal winner. Just take them back just one little step, just a couple years prior to that, because we all go through our wilderness period in our life, right? This difficult time, our mess time. Take them through that just a little bit for you. Give them some hope about that.
Yeah, everybody's wilderness looks different. And sometimes, it's God inflicted. God will take you through some things, and he'll want to take you through to get you on the other side and grow you and stretch you and teach you. And then sometimes the wilderness is self-inflicted in things that we do to ourselves.
Yeah.
So mine was self-inflicted. My father passed in 2002 abruptly from heart disease. And I was already kind of, teetering a little bit, 1 foot in the boxing game, but also a little burnt out and just trying to, do things that I never done before. I had a very strict life growing up. I didn't hang out a lot. I didn't really get a chance to go to parties and do certain things. It was probably good on one hand, kept me out of trouble, but I lost a childhood committing to this sport.
Yeah.
So at that time, I was just kind of ready for a break, but it's kind of taboo in the house. It's not really something you can just go and say, hey, Dad, I'm done. I don't want to do this thing that you guys have invested thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars
and
in,
hours.
Ran up credit cards, sacrificed to get me to tournaments. You just don't want to say that. So when my dad died, that was kind of my excuse to kind of go buck wild. And I did everything that I wanted to do. I drank, I put things in my body I wasn't supposed to, and I almost lost it all. I can remember calling Verge, and mind you, he, at that time, worked in the probation department. He ended up retiring after 20 years. And he has a gift to work with young men, to talk to young men. And he used to just remind me. I'd say things like, man, I'm not interested in going to the Olympics, man. I just want to live my life. He just kind of chuckled and say, son, listen, I hear you, but if you let these Olympics pass you by and you don't keep the promise to your father that you made, you're never going to be able to live with yourself. And you see some guys that you know you can beat, he said, you're not going to be able to live with yourself. He said, so go ahead, enjoy yourself. And I'd kind of, and I'd get mad and I'd hang up. But when I hung the phone up, it was eating at me. It was eating at me. And my father, like I said earlier, gave me my foundation and my faith.
Yeah.
I strayed, but it was always gnawing at me. Yeah. I wasn't raised like this. I know I'm doing wrong. Man, what if Virgil's right? What if the Olympics come and go and I don't, and I don't become what I'm supposed to become? And one thing that always stuck in my head was I didn't want to be the guy on the side of the road that people walked by and said, man, that guy was a bad boy. He just couldn't get it together. He blew it. So
wow.
Between the drinking, the partying, the running the streets, I just got to a place, man, where I knew my time was running out. And I don't necessarily mean my life was gonna end, but I knew something bad was getting ready to happen. My mother, who she struggled with a crack addiction, like we said, for about 20 years. But at the time that my dad died, she was doing well. She had given her life back to the Lord. She was in the church and she was, attempting to get back into my life. She called me out of the blue one night. I remember I was sitting in a car with some friends and I had a little flip phone. And no smartphones at that time.
That's right.
And she said, you know what? And she said, what's going on? I said, no, Mom, I'm just hanging out, I'm just chilling. She said, I don't know what you're doing, but whatever you're doing, you need to stop. I said, what are you talking about? She said, I just saw a picture of you and it looked like a picture that should be on an obituary. And that shook me to my core. Because I knew enough about God to know that the warning a lot of times will come before destruction. He'll give you warnings. He'll send people to you. He'll nudge you. He'll prod you. He'll push you. And a lot of times if we don't accept that nudging and that prodding and that pushing, that catastrophe, that thing is going to happen. And I felt it internally, man. And I just got to a place, man, where I threw my hands up and I called Virgil. I said, man, I'm done, man. He said, well, come on home. Oh, wow. And the rest was history, man. I started to slowly give my life back to God and accept my father's abrupt passing and kind of facing that and dealing with that instead of numbing myself to avoid it. And God just slowly just healed me, man. He just healed me from the inside out. I started to regain my love back for the sport of boxing, my love back for the Lord. And then next thing I know, man, I'm on the Olympic team and I'm representing my country in 2004.
Okay. Easily one of the most favorite things I've ever heard in my damn life is what you just said. You parents out there, parents, number one, this is the part where you go rewind and you go play this for your children who may be in one of those spots. Yeah. It's also for you, those of you that are maybe straight. People say, hey, were you after your dream all the time? I've lost some of my drive and ambition. All of us, that stuff ebbs and flows. I'm not after my dream 100% all the time. There's times where these things ebbs and flow. Our faith, both of us have struggled at different times with our faith in coming back. And that is just so amazing. You guys, did you forget that you're listening to a world-class athlete? Because usually all you would hear is just ego, 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 ego. I'm amazing. One of the things that's so wonderful about you is I want people to know there's this good man of God. There's this humble man. There's this guy who's self-aware of his struggles. Clearly, by the way, we haven't even got to professional boxing yet. Yeah. That's why this is so good. But clearly there's so many lessons in there. But one thing that everybody can tell keeps coming up is your faith. So I want to just talk about that for me because I'm willing to share that as well. Neither one of us do it in a way where it's in your face. Yeah. We just let people know that it's our foundation.
They got to make the choice.
They got to make the choice, exactly. But just speak to just for a minute so that people understand the role your faith plays in your life, has played and continues to play to this time. And by the way, do you ever struggle with it? Have you ever struggled with your faith other than that one time in your life?
Yeah, I mean, I have moments, not to that degree, because coming out of something like that, that's always like a marker for me. You know, it's like almost like a memorial that when I do start to struggle at any point, like I go back to that and I'm like, man, there's no way that I could have come out of that if it wasn't for God.
I'm the same way, and I want you to continue to answer that. People say, how'd you win in your career? And I'm like, well, I did do this, and this. Like I trained this, but to be honest with you, some of it's sort of a blur. Like I almost feel like at some point the Lord just sort of picked me up and carried me for a while. Yeah. I can't completely explain all of it to you. And isn't some of your success in some weird way, this is what I want all of you to be successful, in some weird way, some of the successes I've had are almost like a validation of my faith, because I know I'm not that good. I don't know if you feel that way, but go ahead.
No, it's true, and I feel like the way that my success has come, like, it hasn't been easy, and I don't know if success, like true, lasting success, is ever easy. But for me, like, I feel like God has always put me in a place, and I've talked about the level of talent that I felt like I had. He's always put me in a place where he's given me just enough, but there's always been like a gap between like me being the best and like that gap is like faith, hard work, and belief. So when I do get to the end goal, it's almost like God is saying, you know, you didn't do that on your own.
That's how I feel. Wow.
And that forces me to give him the glory.
Wow.
And it keeps you humble. And a lot of people say that, like, man, you're so humble. And it's like, yeah, but you don't know what I've been through. And I know that if I start feeling myself a little too much and I start getting lifted up, it might get bad ugly.
That's what happens with
So
me.
internally, I know this.
Me too.
So
he'll always kind of slap me back a little bit when I'm starting to feel me a little bit.
And we all start doing that from time to time.
Yes.
It's natural.
Yes, same here. So it's the centerpiece, like, for you, of your life is really your faith, though. True?
Yes, everything, man. Like, I've seen too much. I've been through too much to go back. I've seen too much. And, you know, I respect people, you know, when they're trying to figure it out, or maybe they don't believe in God. And like you mentioned a few minutes ago, like, it's not something that you push on people. You know, God is a lion, man. You don't have to, he can defend himself. You know, if a person wants to know, hey, man, how did you do this? And I'm open to share. But hopefully my life is speaking, you know, just as loud, if not louder, than the words that I'm saying.
I believe it does. I'll just tell you guys, you know, there's very few people I've chased to have on the show. The good thing about the show doing well is they want to come on the show. I've chased him for quite a while. Like, I've texted you a lot of times, right? Because I wanted this message to get out. I want our young athletes to see this. I want the athletes I coach to see this. I want the business people. There's no difference between business and boxing anywhere else, but you do forget when Andre's talking, you forget that this is, especially in boxing, because it's sort of a swaggy, ego-driven sort of sport, which you got to have that confidence in yourself.
Absolutely.
I have total self-confidence, but a lot of my confidence comes because I know I got God in my corner all the time, right?
And you work hard.
And I work hard, exactly, just like, well, obviously like you do. Let's talk a little boxing. We got to go there. We'll talk some family, but let's talk some boxing. So I'm curious. I'm a big boxing fan. So when you became on my radar was during the Super 6 tournament. Okay, so that was, and they called that the super middleweight division at the time,
super
correct?
Middleweight, 168 pounds.
But basically, I'm paraphrasing. Showtime got together and said, let's just find the best one in the world. They put the 6 of you in this tournament. It ended up being a 7th dude or something. Wasn't Jermaine Taylor in it originally, or what happened with
Well,
that?
there were guys that, like, guys would get knocked out or get injured, and then they replace them. But it was always, the core was always 6.
So again, you had Kessler, you had Frock, whatever they call him. There's some dudes in this tournament, right?
Yeah.
And you ended up winning that tournament. I'm curious, when it started at that level, was that a new level for you? And like, did you have fear? Like, did you wonder whether you were the man of those 6? How'd that work for you?
I had to drop everything. We got in the car, got back to San Diego, flew to the Bay Area, literally dropped my family off, packed a bag, double ear infection, got on a red eye, went to Germany, and was there the next morning to announce the second leg of the Super 6, and was this close to not being a part of it.
That's crazy. And the way they filmed it, everybody, by the way, this was so powerful, because all this 24/7 stuff you see now, this was kind of the original of that.
Yeah, it was.
And it was so well done. It really changed to some extent how boxing was promoted on either Showtime or HBO too, the way they laid it out. But I watched it closely, and you weren't the dude they were sort of steering the cameras towards in the beginning. I mean, it was really interesting. It was the other guys that I've mentioned before. And I remember you won, then you won again. I'm like, oh, this dude's got a chance to win this whole tournament. So every one of these fights, just curious, when you went into it, I just want to know how like a world-class person thinks or doesn't think. You're there at that thing in Germany. You see these other 5 dudes. Are you like, I'm going to win this tournament? Or
I've always had that belief. Like, my professional career was guided very meticulously. You know, the powers that be, the networks, the suits, the promoters, like they want bang for their buck. They want to make the most money as quickly as possible. And I had opportunities to fight some of the guys that were in the tournament maybe a year or 2 earlier. And it was for more money than I'd ever seen, and, you know, great opportunity. And, you know, I called Verz like, man, they're going to give us, you know, 600,000. And we get to fight on, you know, HBO and this and that, or Showtime. And he said, no. He said, hold on. He said, I understand that, if we say no to this, internally there's going to be some blowback. But he said, when we fight these guys, I want you to be a full-grown man, and I want you to destroy them. Like I don't want, I don't want you to be barely winning or barely eking by. And we did that like 2 or 3 times before the Super 6 happened, and we get blowback, and some of the blowback spilled publicly, where fans are saying, Ward's, he's a gold medalist, but he's moving too slow, and that's the heat you take.
Yeah.
That's the bullseye you have on your back coming in with a gold medal. But in Germany, I really saw what the intent was. You had Mikkel Kessler, who was Mikkel Kessler at the time. He was like 42-1 or something like that, but like I don't know how many knockouts. He had more knockouts than I had fights. You had Carl Froch, who was from the UK, and you had Arthur Abraham, and then you had the 3 Americans. Right, Jermaine Taylor, who was teetering. He was still relevant, but he was teetering on kind of being done. You had the young guy, Andre Durrell, and then you had the other young guy and myself. And I could tell that everybody that was there, they just looked at us like we were just a token just to be there. Like these guys will make it interesting. Some namesake, young guys coming up, but these guys, these are the guys that are supposed to win.
Yes.
And I took exception to that.
Took it personal.
I took exception to that, and I got on the phone. I called Virgil. I said, "Man, they don't really expect me to win this." He said, "Oh yeah, I know." He said, "It's always been like that." He said, "But just watch, unwavering faith. He's always that pillar." And again, that jumped off on me. It's already confident, but now it was personal. Now it was personal.
Your physiology changes so dramatically. You go into your Virgil thing, you into your dad, you do this, you're like,
you can see it.
And at that time, Kessler and Froch were like rock stars in their various countries too, right? They were big names at the time.
Quick, I don't blame anybody for not picking us. Like I probably wouldn't have picked me. I was a young guy. Yeah, I had the gold medal, but I hadn't done anything as a pro. My biggest win was a guy named Edison Miranda, who was a beast. He was a top contender, right? That was my biggest win as a professional. So I don't blame anybody for not picking me, but I was also going to use that as fuel and ammunition as well. I was going to use it.
So he goes on to win that like he wins everything else. This is the thing you said through. I just want to hear everyone just hear things I hear that I think are important. I do think that there are times in your life where if you don't jump on an opportunity, you will regret it the rest of your life. That there's timing to when you win. There are moments, and you've said this a few times where Virgil said this to you. And for a lot of you that are chasing what you're chasing, you may get fatigued of that chase, but there's got to be this party that goes, if I don't jump on this now, this may never come again for me. So your timing is so critical on winning this Super 6 tournament was a huge catalyst. Now let's talk some boxing stuff just for me, because I want to know some stuff. Okay, I'm curious. I told you I was going to ask you this, and you haven't told me the answer, so I'm curious. Forget the training part just for a second. We're going to get to that. You were getting wrapped. You're about to go out, okay, for a big fight. You're getting wrapped up. I'm sure Virgil's talking to you. You're going through whatever your game plan was. What goes through you? Is there honest emotions here as a fighter? See, the thing about boxing to me is that it's different than every other sport. UFC has some of this as well, but the combat sports. This is a man and a man. I think people forget this. Like, even when you bat as a baseball hitter, there's another dude coming up after you. If you ground out, the other dude could get the hit, right? This is a man and a man. And I'm just curious, when you have that happening, look at your physiology changed again, right? But I'm just curious, like, when you're getting wrapped at that moment, what's going through you emotionally? What's happening to you at that time?
That moment can break a lot of men. You can have a great training camp. Everything could be clicking. You could have a great fight week leading up to that moment. And that moment, as well as the walk to the ring, you can lose it. Like, you can lose your confidence. You can let fear overtake you. And you can somehow convince yourself that you're not worthy to be there in that moment. It's almost like an out-of-body experience. You hear people say, a guy froze, or he didn't perform, or it was a deer in the headlights. Like, that's what they're talking about. Like, it's almost like a surreal moment, like this moment that you've been prepping for, talking about, building up to, the world has been talking about. Like, it's here, and the fact that it's actually here, like, it hits you in a different kind of way. Like, you're getting wrapped. And you have the commission from whatever state you're fighting. They're coming in. They're checking on you. They're giving you the countdown. We got 45 minutes. We got 30 minutes. We got 20. Then they come back in after you get your gloves back on, and they say, we got 5 minutes. We're walking in 2.5 minutes. And they start to count you down. Like, whether you train good or not, that's running through your brain. Thinking about my wife and my kids. I'm thinking about the fact that the whole world is literally going to be watching me in just a few moments. I'm thinking about my critics. They got a front row seat. They got a front row seat. Thinking about my supporters and the people that are riding with me, getting behind me. They got a front row seat. They're watching. They're pulling for me. It's like this controlled chaos that's going on, and it's literally an arena. It's a with two gladiators getting ready to literally risk it all. Like, boxing is the only sport, professional sport that I know of, that one loss can change your pay scale. Like, it's in the contract. If you lose a fight, your minimums can change. We can renegotiate those minimums. Like, that's what's going through my head. Wow. And fear is very real.
Really?
Anxiety is very real. It's very present. And all the guys that say, I don't get nervous, I'm Iron Man, they're not being honest.
Is that right?
Like, that's very, very present, but that's where my faith comes in. And I start to believe beyond myself. I start to believe beyond the way that I'm feeling. Like, we're called to walk by faith and not by sight. We're called to walk by faith and not by feeling. So fear is present, but courage is going in the midst of fear. And I've had 32 fights before I retired, and I had to do that every single time. It's not like, oh, this is the 25th time I've done this. It's easy. Because one punch can change your pay scale. One punch can change your life. And you're not guaranteed to walk out the same way you walked in. So all of that is going through your mind, running through your body, and you got to channel it. You got to process it. And you got to believe, and you got to be unwavering. And one thing I would always do was I would kind of just pace the locker room. And even though my team's in there, even though the commissioner's coming in and out, and again, this like controlled chaos. Television cameras are in your face. Producers are walking around. You hear the crowd. You hear the announcer. I would just talk to myself. It's my night. It's my night. I'm not going home without my belts. Like, those types of things, they may seem corny to some people, but that stuff would really lift me up. And because a made up mind is a hard thing to break. And your mind has to be made up. Not walking to the ring or when you step through those ropes. Your mind has to be made up before you leave that locker room that I'm not going to be broken. I will not lose tonight.
Oh my gosh. You ever get there where you're at the stare down and look at a dude and know you got him? Has that ever happened? Or is it on a professional level you just don't know? Does it ever happen the reverse, where you're in that state, you're in that faith state, you're in that strong state, and you've looked, you're like, oh, I got this fool? Does that ever happen? You have to tell me who.
Most times, no.
Okay.
Because as fighters, we can lie.
Yeah.
We're good chameleons. Because in the sport of boxing, if you show weakness, the opponent's gonna pounce. So we hide a lot of our emotions. You know, you got some guys that are scared to death, and they'll put a mask on. There's one time in a 32 fight career that I knew I had a guy at the weigh-in, Chad Dawson.
You knew. You even told me who it was. And he, by the way, Chad Dawson's a great fighter, but
Yes,
you knew. How'd you know him? Why'd you know?
So you get a lot of rumors and you hear a lot of hearsay in training camp.
Yeah.
This guy, you know, they'll call my coach, and I stayed away from that stuff, but my coach always had his ear to what was going on with my opponent. And he would decide on what he wanted to share and what he wouldn't want to share. The guy, Edison Miranda, that I just told you about, he was sparring with Chad Dawson to help Chad Dawson get ready for our fight. Big fight. Chad Dawson was the lineal light heavyweight champion, had just beat the great legendary Bernard Hopkins.
Southpaw.
The fight before, yes. Yep. Tall, rangy. Yep. He beat Bernard Hopkins. He's on HBO. Max Kellerman asked him, you know, Chad, what do you want next? I'm minding my own business. He calls my name. I just won the Super 6. He said, I want Andre Ward. He said, I'll fight him in his hometown of Oakland, California, and I'll go down to his weight too. And I said, really? and I like Chad. Like, I supported Chad and didn't see that coming. That was like the easiest fight that we ever negotiated right there. And I held him to every single word that he spoke. Every word.
Coming my way, my place.
So they get into training camp, and because he's losing so much weight, his punch resistance isn't there. Edison Miranda can crack. Edison Miranda knocks him out in sparring.
In sparring.
Stuff starts to circulate. Verge comes to me, he said, listen, babe. He used to call me babe. Listen, babe. I'm not saying this to get you off track. We got to stay focused. We're probably about 2.5, maybe 3 weeks away from the fight. Maybe about 2.5. He said, I'm hearing some things, man. I'm hearing that Edison Miranda, he knocked Chad out. I said, knocked him out. He said, knocked him out. Like they had to stop the sparring, help him up, and that was it for the day. Now, if you're a fighter, like, that's like the worst case scenario. It's one thing if you get knocked out in a fight. You got small gloves on, no headgear, it happens. That's acceptable in some respects. In sparring, nah. Not if you're the top dude. There may be a sparring partner getting knocked out, but not the top guy, not the champion. That was a no-no. Started hearing rumors, so I'm kind of processing, like, man, he got knocked down. Man, that's crazy. But in my mind, I'm always very much in my head, especially in training camps. So I'm like, maybe they're just floating that out there to get in my head or trying to get me off track. And that's what Verge said. He said, but don't worry about it too much. Just, stay focused. We kept hearing stuff. Nothing ever went on the airways. Nothing on the internet, nothing. Press conference came the week of the fight. I'm thinking, man, I wonder if they're going to say something. So rumor going to come out, if I'm going to be asked about it. It's never asked about it. The weigh-in comes. Friday, the fight Saturday. I said, now I'm going to drop it on him. We go face to face. And his team, they're over there woofing. My team's kind of woofing a little bit. And I leaned in his ear and I said, hey, man, I heard what happened in that gym. I said, you better tighten it up tomorrow night. And you just see his shoulders just go, and he's got this look on his face like, how did you know? I won the fight with Chad Dawson right there.
Oh my gosh,
we turned and look at the cameras, turn back and look at him before I walk off the stage. I broke him.
You just knew.
Broke him.
That is an awesome story.
He thought he got away with it. He thought we didn't know. It's too late. You can't get out of the fight now.
That is awesome, man.
That was the only time I ever felt like I won a fight when I did a face-off.
Thank you for all of that insight of that and what it's like getting wrapped. Like,
I don't know if I've ever told that story before.
It's awesome. Well, we're keeping it in whether you want to or not. I'm keeping that one in there. No, we do
all good.
So you said that one punch. A couple more things on boxing, then we'll shift because we're going to run out of time. But like I could go 3 hours of this. But you said that one punch. Who's hardest you ever been hit by? Who?
Hey. I would say it's tough to say one guy, but I would probably say the guy with the strongest power, the two guys with the strongest power are Arthur Abraham, and I heard rumors about him. The analogy people always gave was he feels like he's got bricks in his gloves. And if you watch my first fight with him, the only fight that we had in the first round, he hit me with a jab.
A jab.
And for those that don't know, that's a basic punch in boxing, just a straight punch. Bow, he hit me and I kind of buckled a little bit. I said, oh boy, it's real. Everything they said was real. And that kept me on my toes and kept me on my game the whole night. And then Edison Miranda, he hit like a mule. His money punch was the right hand. That's pretty much all he had. He pawed with the jab. He had these long arms, and if he landed that right hand flush, a lot of guys went to sleep. And that was my first time facing a big puncher like that. And that's probably the worst I've ever felt after a fight, was fighting Edison Miranda. Those two guys probably had the most devastating power.
So I thought you were going to say, and we'll wrap up the boxing piece here, I thought you were going to tell me Kovalev. So, I love your face when I said that. So, for those of you who don't know, so I'm a huge fan of yours, you know this. But now that we're friends, I need to tell you that before you fought him,
you a little worried?
I was worried for you. So I thought, this is the crusher. This dude supposedly can really hit, right? And so y'all don't know this, he beat him twice. And but so just because those are the last couple fights, right?
Yeah,
so just
last two fights.
What would you just tell me about fighting him, prepping for him, getting hit by him, those fights? Anything you would tell me about those experiences?
I mean,
because the first fight was like, hey, it was people thought it could have gone either way. The second fight, there was obviously no question.
Yeah, no, I mean, Kovalev was like, he's a real deal. He's a real deal. Anytime you got a nickname like the Crusher, you better be able to hit hard. And he has good power. It's not what I thought it was. But he hits hard. And I think one thing that's always been overlooked in my career, you hear about, people saying, oh, he's a good boxer, Dre, he can do this, he can do that, but they never talk about my chin. And that's not really something I want to be known for.
Because you don't want to get hit all the time.
Hey,
right?
That's not really my thing, but
it.
I've fought the best punchers in the game. And I've been down twice in a 32-fight career. And I fought the best. And one of those times was against Sergey Kovalev. I can't get into too much because we're going to be putting out the documentary soon, and we're going to detail a lot of what happened in the pre-fight for Kovalev 1, but just went through a lot of different things physically for that fight. I was moving up in weight from 168 pounds to 175 pounds. But again, like you just mentioned, I'm not going up there just to fight some Rudy Poo. I'm fighting the best guy. This guy was the real deal. Russian fighter. He was known for going into other people's hometowns and home countries and taking their belts. And nobody really wanted to fight him. And here I am, a guy that's in a lower weight class, who's not really considered a big puncher, but has a lot of skill, and I've pretty much won everything at the lower weight class. And people are saying, man, he's going up in weight. The overall consensus was, the critics were saying he bit off too much. This is the guy that's finally going to get him. And my supporters were saying, Dre's going to outbox him. We get into the fight, and the first thing I noticed about him was just how accurate he was. It wasn't necessarily that he hit hard. It was just, he was just very accurate. I was thinking, and he was punching. And the first round was just it was just like a blur. And I remember sitting down and Verge getting on me right away, saying, man, stop posing. Meaning stop standing still, move your legs, warm up, get moving. And I was just kind of man, I don't know, I just kind of felt like I was in quicksand. Second round, he and I exchange, and I'm getting ready to throw a right hand. He's getting ready to throw a right hand, and his right hand gets there first. And I just see a flash, bam. I look up, oh, man, I'm on the canvas. I hear the crowd going crazy. I look up, the referee's in my face, 6, 7, 8. And I stand up. In those moments, we talked about pre-fight, but in that moment, that's for sure a fight or flight type moment. Whatever you got on the inside, it's gonna come out. If you got turn in you, it's gonna come out. If you got any kind of coward in you, it's gonna come out. If you got the dog in you, that's gonna come out too. And I thank my dad for these types of moments, because my dad had that dog in him, and he's the type of guy that would never start anything, but if you hit him, he's gonna hit you back. And that was probably the best thing that could have happened to me in that first fight with Kovalev, was for me to get knocked down, because now I'm mad. Now I want to get that back. And I'm no longer overthinking, trying to be perfect. I was too busy. I was incensed with trying to get that moment back from him. And I found somehow, some way, man, by the grace of God, I clawed my way back into that fight. And I really felt like from the 7th round on, I broke him. And when I say broke him, it doesn't mean that he quit. It doesn't mean that he threw in the towel. It means that he wasn't himself. I stopped him from being who he wanted to be that night. And I eked out a win. And I won the fight by the 12th round. If I'm not mistaken, 2 judges gave it to me.
That's correct.
1 judge gave it to him. One judge gave it to him. And some people were not happy about it.
That's right.
And some people were happy about it. And after the fight, I thought I was done. I thought I was done. I think it was a combination of just my career, the physical toil that it took to get ready for fights, and then the actual fights. And then you see the reaction from the people, and it's man, I just gave my all. I just beat the boogeyman. I beat the monster, and it's still not enough. And I didn't do anything for 3 months after that fight, and that's a no-no for me. I always do something. I'll take, maybe 3-4 weeks off, let my body heal, and then I'll start to do some running, some light shadow boxing. I'll get back in the gym little by little. I had no desire, literally for 3 months straight. And I remember going to see my pastor, Napoleon Kaufman, former Raider running back.
Really? He's your pastor?
That's my pastor.
Did he go to Notre Dame or Navy?
No, he went to UW, University of Washington.
That's right. Okay, that's right. That's right.
From Lompoc.
I remember him.
I remember going to him, and he abruptly retired after 6 years in the league, and started a church, and he's been doing great. I said, man, Pastor, I don't know, man. I said, I think I'm done, man. He said, man, why do you say that? I said, I haven't done anything in 3 months. I said, that's not like me. I have no desire to do this. And I thought he was going to co-sign with me. And he kind of sat there like he did. He said, Dre, He said, I think you'll be fine if you stop right now. He said, but I can see you doing one more. And I remember, like, I was thankful for what he told me, but at the same time, I was disappointed. I'm like what? Like, wait a second, you're supposed to give me that extra little oomph to, like, give me the courage to walk away. Yeah. And he challenged me. He said, man, I can see you doing one more. I said, really? I said, but I just told you I have no desire to do it. I haven't been to the gym. He said, I know. He said, but once you make up your mind that you want to do the second fight, he said, the fire will be rekindled. And he just sat there. And I got up and I walked out. And again, I had mixed emotions. I was like, man, I appreciate him. Man, that wasn't what I thought he was going to say. And he challenged me just to go a little bit longer, go a little bit further. And I was content, even though I knew I was going to get some heat and people were going to say, you're running from Kovalev, you lost the first fight, you're scared to fight the second fight. I knew I was going to get that, but I was over it. Drove home and talked to my wife and mulled over for about another week. And I picked up the phone. I told my team, I said, man, get the money right. I said, we'll do the second fight. And just like that, the desire kicked back in.
It did come back. You trained just as rigorously for that fight as any other fight.
I had the best training camp for that fight than I probably ever had my whole career. I was the happiest. I just enjoyed it again.
Okay.
The first fight, physical issues, it was just a lot of pressure. Like, it was just a lot. It just didn't feel right. But once I got through that and got to this other side, man, I had a great camp, man. I was happy. Yeah. I had the bounce back in my legs. My body felt good. I just mentally, like me and Verz had planned to knock him out. That was the first thing Verz said when I went back to the gym. He said, we're going to stop him. And in my mind, I'm like, all right, how? Like, give me the how. That's the what. What's the how? He said, we're going to hit him to the body. He said, you broke him that second half of that fight. He was exhausted. He said, we're going to pick up where we left off. And the camp was just amazing.
It was amazing.
Amazing. Like, we had, bumps and bruises, but that was the best camp emotionally that I've had in a long time.
So that leads to the big question. Like, he retired. By the way, if you want to see something that's unbelievable. So this was a dominant win, okay? I think your best fight, myself, because of who it was against, too. But so you want to see an emotional clip, go to his Instagram, which we're going to promote at the very end. We're going to promote some things here in a minute that I want you all to see that are awesome that he's doing. But let me just be clear with you. You need to go watch this video. It's emotional to watch. I told him I got teary-eyed watching it alone, right? But so you lost a little of your juice after the first fight. You found it. Then he retired after this fight. Okay. But, like, still the dominant fighter that you are, like, why not fight again? Do you know you're not going to fight again? Or is there the chance that something like that happens again and that fire gets rekindled and we see you back in the ring again? Because he walked in there, I'm like, this dude is fit. I mean, ready to go. It's been a year Friday that he decided to retire, but like, really? Yeah. You know how boxers are, like, really? Now, he's saved some money. He's not your normal boxer, but be real. Like, is there a door open? I know you can't, like, is it cracked open? Is it possible? The right dude came along, called you out, whatever. Like, don't do the TV answer. Do the real answer. Like, is there a chance that you would fight again?
Listen, it's not something I'm planning, it's not something I'm planning. It's not something that's being mapped out. But I'm also smart enough to know that you don't know how things are going to unfold. You just don't know. So I'm always going to keep myself in some kind of shape.
Yeah, you're smirking.
I'm always keep my eye on the game and just see who's who and what's going on. But I'm not planning on it. Like, the why is what we're going to address in my upcoming documentary. Yeah. Unguarded.
Let's talk about that.
And I named it Unguarded because my harshest critic will say that Andre's guarded. He doesn't give you anything. And some of that is true, but a lot of them haven't taken the time to ask why. Like, we just met. I followed you. I know your body of work. But I feel like I can talk to you.
Thank you.
It's kind of like a kindred spirit there. Yes. So you want to open up to a person like that. And sometimes the media, they come off abrasive and they kind of want the story for the wrong reason. And based on my upbringing and everything that I've had to go through, like, I'm sensitive with my story, man. And I'm sensitive with my whys and I'm sensitive with all those things. And this is one of the first times that I'm gonna, like, really open up, and not just open up, but, like, show people why the best fighter at that time a year ago walked away from tens of millions of dollars. And without giving too much away, like, of course, you know, there's a lot of factors. There's you know, wanting to preserve my long-term health. You know, I'm dealing with physical issues. I've had multiple surgeries, and I've, you know, to use your line, like I've maxed out. Like I poured myself out. Like I've literally given everything that I was supposed to give. Like when I jumped rope, I gave it everything I had. When I shadow boxed, I gave it everything I had. And literally to the point to where my coaches had to pull me back and say, man, don't leave it all in here. Like that's all I know is to give it everything I had, because like I've had a 20-year win streak since I've been a baby, 14 years old. And that doesn't come easy. Yeah. And yes, I can have the faith in God, and yes, I can have all that stuff, but faith without works is dead. Yeah. And I put in that work. So I got to a point where I said, there's only a handful of guys that have walked away like this. A handful. And there's even a smaller percentage of guys that left undefeated. And I didn't just pad my record and then say I'm undefeated. Like I fought the best available competition. And I just woke up one day and I had tens of millions of dollars on the table. And I told my wife, I was like, I don't want to do this no more. You know, I don't want to do this no more. And I said, and even me saying it, like it's taboo. You're not supposed to say that as a professional athlete, and more importantly, a fighter. Because when you start using the R word, the writing's on the wall. Yeah. It's time to go. And she said, babe, if you're saying that, I feel like the decision is already made. And you know you got my full support. And the video that you just mentioned, for some reason that video was in my head. Like I had it. I said, man, I want my, and those boys that were in the video were my sons. Oh, wow. I said, I want to show people like my career at each stage. As a young kid, and then, you know, young teenager, and then, you know, older teenager, and then I want to let them know that I accomplished everything that I set out to accomplish. I got people that love me. I got critics, you know, but I've done it all that I wanted to do. I've made enough money. I'm ready to go. And there's a piece of this decision that was for me, but then there's also a piece that was for the sport that I love, a sport that I've given up a childhood for and given my life to. You know, fighters are not always revered. When you say certain fighters' names, you get a certain reaction. When you bring up the name boxing and you don't love the sport like you, most people's reaction is, and they have something negative to say after that. And one thing that they always say is, you know, those fighters, man, you know, they hang on too long. And I went to Canastota, New York about 3 years ago to the International Boxing Hall of Fame. And it was a rewarding moment. It was an awesome moment. I'm seeing fighters that I grew up watching, and I'm talking to them, and we're getting at each other like, man, I ought to beat you, man, you're too small. And we just had a great 2 or 3 days. But then I also saw the ones that neurologically weren't good, or maybe didn't have the money, tangible, you know, proof of what they did all these years. And it bothered me. And I didn't want to be another one of those guys. Like, when is enough enough? Yeah. Like, you can always say there's more money out there. But the question that me and my wife kept asking ourselves is, what do we do with what we had? With what was already in our hands? And since I retired, don't get me wrong, like, I missed the boxing checks because they were plentiful. Sure. They were large. Yes. But they come with a price. Yeah. And I just wasn't willing to put my body through that anymore. And again, I'm a person that gave it all I had, or I don't want to do it at all. And if I can't give it all I have, and if I don't think my body's going to respond like I need it to, I don't want to wait until some young guy has to show me that I don't have it anymore. I'd rather leave on top and try to set an example for the next generation and say, man, you know what? I'm going to do the Andre Ward. Oh, wow. You just have this overabundance of character. Thank you, so man. That's what overflows from you, right? And I do believe in life there's these chapters of our lives, and I think, you know, and I want to make sure that everyone knows about this documentary too, is like, that's one of these chapters. Just the preview alone is just gripping. It's like unbelievable. I can't wait for this to get out into the world. And you've turned the page, and one of the things about you, because your character is so, by the way, selfishly, I hope as you keep turning these pages that sometime over the next 2 or 3 years, again, the chapter turns where you feel the desire to do that or should do it. But I admire and respect you for not doing it too, because there is so much to be said to be finishing the way that you have. And because of your character, because of
your composure, your elegance, the way you communicate, you have a lot of other opportunities outside of boxing too, right? I mean, you know that. And so let's talk about a couple of those things, and I want to finish with your family.
Okay.
And thank you for today. And thank you for being such an amazing example of what a good, decent, godly man can do in life. And it means a great deal to me that the world gets even more exposure to somebody like you. And I also feel like, and I'm not just saying this, starting to get to know you, I think boxing is going to be a part of your life, but I just have this feeling that the next 30, 40 years are going to be extraordinary for you, like the best years of your life. Because boxing may someday just be your old story. You know, I really do believe that about you.
Thank you, bro. I appreciate it.
He does all kinds of stuff. So you've seen him do, you know, commentary for HBO. He just did the ESPN, the Canelo Triple G fight, which we both agreed that we both think that Canelo won that fight, which is in the minority. In the minority. But I'm curious, though. You got a couple other cool things cooking right now. You're the host of The Contender, which is like, to me, one of the great, like, it's the original reality show. So tell them a little bit about that, where they can find it, and why they should find it.
Yeah, no, this year that I've been retired has been just overwhelming. You know, one thing that, you know, I'd say concern, you're concerned about when you retire and you go from one thing that you've done for multiple decades and you're trying to transition into the next phase of life is, like, what am I gonna do? Like, you want to challenge, you want to channel that competitiveness, that drive and all those different things. And I was like, man, I don't know. And my close brothers, they'd be like, bro, God's gonna open up something for you. And I'm like, yeah, I know he can, but like, will he? And I don't know what it's gonna look like. And I barely retired before the phone started ringing, you know? And one of the opportunities was to host The Contender.
So cool.
A show that Sylvester Stallone and Sugar Ray Leonard hosted back in 2004, 2005, 2006. I think the last airing was 2008 or something like that. I grew up watching that show. I saw the fighters that were on there and the Sergio Moras and all these different guys that I was like, man, this dude just won $1 million, man. Like, he went from being just a contender to a household name. Like, I wanted to be on the show, and now they're calling me to actually host the show.
So cool.
Spent a month out in Los Angeles and stayed in Marina Del Rey. And
could have stayed here. You can stay here next time.
Yeah. And it was a lot of work. The first day was probably the roughest day for me. They gave me a script the day before, like this big. Was like, all right, learn this by tomorrow. And I'm like, wait. Like, memorize the whole thing? So I went and memorized the whole thing, not getting sleep. I'm trying to figure it out. And I was so nervous on the first day. Like, I walk out of the office and all 16 fighters are standing there for the first time. They surprise me. They give me a round of applause, and they're like, man, that's Ward. And I'm like trying to process that and like memorize my lines. And I'm like, oh, this is crazy. So I'm playing it off. Like, I hope nobody can tell when they watch the first episode. We got through the first day, and then Eric said, the executive producer said, hey man, forget the script. He said, we got a few things we got to hit those things, but be you. And from day 2 on, man, I just flowed. I was just Andre Ward. And it was a blessing, man.
Where do they find it?
So you go to epics.com. If you don't have it with your cable provider, you can get caught up on all the previous episodes. Or again, you can just call your cable provider and just get a trial there. And we got 12 episodes coming up. And the finale is actually going to be live in Las Vegas, December 8th.
Oh, very
December
cool.
7th, December 8th. So just it's not just boxing. You have real human interest stories. You have, like what we just did today. You have that on the show
with them. It's the ultimate reality show, y'all, because it's not just filming some dudes eating cheeseburgers in restaurants. These guys are fighting for their lives.
It humanizes the fighters.
Oh man, I can remember Sergio Mora very clearly. And by the way, he went on to have a pretty decent career after that.
A great career, made millions of dollars.
Didn't have your career, but he had a great career. So Sly is important to me and you in your life, because not only did you do The Contender, not only have this documentary going, not only are you still doing broadcasting, but you're also in Creed 2.
Creed 2.
Right? So that's pretty cool. So tell them a little bit about that. Like, now you're an actor too, on top of it. So you're coming out in Sly's movie, and in Creed 2, it's not just Sly's movie, but so talk a little bit about that. What was that experience like? Both of them.
Yeah, I was in Creed 1. Ryan Coogler, who directed the first one, is a friend of mine, and he called me and basically said, "Bro, I got a role for you." I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I don't act. He's like, I got a role just for you. Read the script, was nervous as all get out. But he helped me out a lot, man. He encouraged me, went out there. I felt like we did a great job in the first one. Then the second one started coming around, I'm like, man, they haven't called yet. I'm like, I wonder if they're gonna bring my character, Danny Stuntman Wheeler, back. And I sent Michael B. Jordan a message. I was like, hey, bro, they gonna bring Danny back? He was like, yeah, no, it's happening, bro. Don't worry about it. Next day, I got a call from Stephen Capel, who took over for Ryan Coogler, because obviously Ryan Coogler just did Black Panther, killed it, knocked it out of the park, historical numbers. Stephen Capel went to USC, just like Ryan. They're friends. They're kind of working together on Creed 2, and he was a big help. He said, bro, we're bringing you back. This is what we want you to do. So it's a bigger role than it was the first time.
Good.
I'm excited. It's coming out Thanksgiving weekend, and I'll just give you guys this. You're going to see me in a light that you haven't seen me in before on Creed 2.
Really?
So don't miss it.
All right, so hey, Thanksgiving weekend. So we got all this stuff his career in boxing, like literally the phone starts ringing right afterwards. Like you got even more stuff cooking, it seems like right now, right? So
listen, man, like sometimes the things that you want and the things that you desire, they're on the other side of that leap of faith. Like I don't think this stuff would have come if I'd have said, man, I'm gonna go another year or two. Like I had to be courageous enough to walk away and then take that leap of faith and have that small little season where you're kind of in limbo before these opportunities would come, and they came.
The problem with this interview is that there's so many minutes like what you just did. I don't know how I'm going to cut this into just the stuff they'll use, because it's like the gold in like so many different places. And I just think that you and boxing are such great metaphors for life and business and success and all that. But there's been all these running themes. We're running out of time. I've enjoyed this so flippin' much, man.
Hey, man,
I wish we just could keep going. But there's these running themes with you, which is obviously your character. It's obviously your faith, but also family. And I wanted that to be the last part of what we talked about today, because this man has 5 children. 5 people. By the way,
let that sink in.
Yeah, and let it sink in that he also then walked away from those big checks with 5 children. So you really got to be walking by faith, right? Because,
come on now.
Because 5 children, and your daughter is 4 months old, is that right?
My son.
Your son, 4 months old. So he's got 4 boys and a little girl, right? But his son is 4 months old. That's right. His son is gorgeous, by the way. We saw the picture of him, my wife and I. But so 5 babies. Your wife is your high school sweetheart. I mean, are you all hearing this? Like, seriously. Y'all, remember the ladies in the beginning? I told you, stick around because you're going to love this man. There's going to be value. I told you this wasn't just boxing. I told you this is about life.
It's life.
All about life. But I just think you're this, like, man, like, of all the stories you hear, it's like, millions and millions of people know who you are, but, like, you're just one of the great men in sports. Like, you're just one of the great men. People need to know that you can be this caliber of man. And that you ladies, by the way, that men like this exist, right? That are flawed, that go through ups and downs, but that are good men. And so how important to you, and just speak to like I know because we've talked enough about it, but like what's family mean to you?
Man, it's right there with my faith. I got my faith and I got my family. And, just like anything else, you just mentioned, boxing being a metaphor for my life, and that's what it is. Like, whether it's having marrying my high school sweetheart when I was scared to death at 20 years old and not knowing, if I was gonna be able to deal with this and be faithful and just hold the fort down and be a man, or raising kids. Me and my wife had, our first child at 17 and 16 years old. Like, the odds were against us, and we weren't supposed to be where we are now. And I would just tell people, like, it's a fight, man. You got to fight for your marriage. You got to fight to raise your kids the right way. And sometimes things happen that are unexpected, but you keep fighting. You don't give in. You can't just give up. And there's times that I get on my wife's nerves, and there's times that she may get on my nerves. But like, we're not like leaving is not an option. Like, we're gonna ride this thing out. I love you. You getting on my nerves. I'm gonna go downstairs and get away for a minute, and I'll be back up, and we're gonna keep loving on each other. So I'm just thankful, man. I don't know where I would be without like having that foundation. Like, if I didn't have my wife Tiffany there to kind of to give me that from time to time when I'm getting out of line, I don't know. Like, her and I learned the business of boxing together. There's times when we're overlooking contracts, and we're letting our manager know, or we're letting our lawyer know, like, hey, did you guys look at this clause right here? It's like, yeah, but man, that's a good catch. We'll get back to you. Like, that's her and I. Wow. When I wanted to retire, when I'm dealing with, the critics and trying to process that, and, she's there for me to vent to. Like, she's my everything. And Virg used to always tell me, he said, I always knew you were a one-woman man. And I'm like, yeah, how'd you know? He said, I could just tell you weren't a good player. You didn't do a good job. He said, but I can always tell that was you. And he used to say, son, he said, you having a wife at a young age is gonna make you a better fighter. And I think he was right. I think he was right.
I think you're such a decent man, a good man.
Thank you, man.
And I'm so glad, everybody, that one of my heroes, even though I'm much older than him, when you meet your hero sometimes in life, you can be disappointed. And it's very rare when you meet somebody that you admire from a distance that they exceed your expectations.
Man.
And you exceed mine.
Man, thank you.
I think you're tremendous. I want to do whatever I can to help you in the new chapters of your life. I told you that off camera, I mean that. And there are so many things here today for people that I'm going to go out of my way to promote this thing, but I want to make sure that I promote you too. So where can they find you so they can interact with you? So where would you like to send them to find you? You're going to have your documentary out, but they're going to find all these things probably through your social media or website.
I'm on Twitter at Andre Ward, and I'm on Instagram at Andre SOG Ward. Okay. So yeah, I'm very active on social. My website, andresogward.com. We got merchandise. We have just like the latest news. Again, I'm very active, so I communicate back. I'm a very tangible person. Yeah. So feel free to reach out. Come holler, man. I'm there.
Just so y'all know, SOG, when he would get introduced in the ring, it was Son of God. Just so you know what that stands for, everybody. So this man has, all of his career stood for what he stands for now. And I really do believe this. I really do. I don't know if you get back in the ring or not. Selfishly, I hope you do. But I really do.
No pressure, though.
No pressure. But I do have this sense that the next 30, 40 years are going to be the best chapters of your life, brother. I just really do sense that. And I'm so grateful that you were here today. I actually covered the things I wanted to cover, which is incredible in the interview. So it was absolute joy to have you here today. So thank you so much.
I received everything you said, brother. Thank you for having me.
God bless you. So, man, so good today.
I'm on it.
So, hey, everybody. I know what you're thinking. You're like, I can't believe this, right? So please follow him on social media. You already follow me or you wouldn't be watching this. But remember also one thing on social media. We run the 2-minute drill every single day on Instagram, which is essentially this, that when I make a post in the main feed, if you just make a comment within the first 2 minutes with hashtag MaxOut, I pick a winner every single day. They get coaching calls with my guests, coaching calls with me, my book, free gear, you name it. So make sure you're interacting with me on social media. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, subscribe on iTunes, and leave a review as well. We maxed out today. I want to challenge you to max out your life and take all of the gold, all of the keys from Andre today and put them into works in your own life. God bless you and max out.